Every night at 3:03 a.m., something walks whistling past my house.
Welcome to the Freaky Femme podcast. I am Em.
Yes, that is Em, and I'm Doll. And yes, I sound funny, a little bit stuffed because I've been sick. Let's go ahead and get the panhandling out of the way, the begging out of the way. Please follow and rate our Spotify podcast and interact in any type of way. Also, you can comment and leave your stories there, or you can email us your experiences at thefreakyfems@gmail.com.
Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
Our goal, like we've said, if you're new here, our goal is 10,000 on each or either or both, hopefully both, to be able to do more in-depth, in-person IRL, like ghost hunting and going to places where people have had experiences, or like where monsters live, like go find Bigfoot, or go to Goatman Bridge or something like that, or go to Crybaby Bridge. I've always wanted to go to Crybaby Bridge.
I'm down. I'm always down for a spooky time.
All you have to do, you subscribe, it's free, like, it's free, comment. Everybody likes to comment and say their opinions, so go ahead and tell us yours.
That is also free, and it would help us out.
Yes, rating
greatly.
our Spotify.
Yes.
Anyways, since that's out of the way, I'm about to tell you a little creepypasta, a little story. It's one of my favorite creepypastas. We thought we would do something a little different. We're going to tell each other some r/no sleep creepypastas. The name of this one is rather long. Something walks whistling past my house every night at 3:03 a.m. What do you think about that title, Em?
3:03 is the witching hour. I tried to say it and I said wishing. Witching hour. So 3 o'clock in the morning is never a good time.
No.
And every time I feel like something happens, it's at 3 o'clock in the morning.
Yep.
It's witching hour, you know?
So, I'm going to go ahead and start. Every night, no matter the weather, something walks down our street whistling softly. You can only hear it in the living room or in the kitchen when they walk by. And it always starts exactly at 3:03 a.m. The sound starts faint somewhere near the beginning of the lane, near the Carson's place, so the whistling moves past us before fading away in the direction of the cul-de-sac. When I was young, my sister and I would sneak into the kitchen some nights to listen. Mom and Dad didn't like that, and we'd catch hell if they found us out there. But they were never too hard on us, since we always stuck to the one big rule. Don't try to look at whatever was whistling. So what do we think of this so far?
Creepy.
My neighborhood is a funny place. I've lived here since I was 6, and I love it. The houses are small but well kept, good-sized yards, plenty of places to roam. There are a lot of other kids here my age. I just turned 13 back in October. We grew up together and would always play foursquare in the cul-de-sac, or roam around from back porch to back porch in the summer. This was a good place to grow up. I'm old enough to see it. And there's only 2 strange things about living here: the night whistler and the good luck. The whistling never bothered me much. Like I said, I couldn't even hear it from my bedroom, but Mom and Dad don't like talking about it, so I've stopped asking questions. My dad is a strong guy, tall, calm, and he has an accent since he moved here to the US as a kid from the islands. My dad, the only time he isn't so calm is when the whistler comes up. He talks a little quicker. Eyes move faster. He tells us not to think about it so much, and to always remember the one rule, the big rule. Don't try to look outside when the whistler goes past. Not that we could even look outside if we wanted to. The shutters are on the inside of every window, thick pieces of heavy canvas that pull down from the top and latch at the bottom of the window frames. Each latch even has a small little lock about the size of a diary lock. My dad locks those shutters every night before we go to bed and keeps the key in his room. My mom doesn't know what she thinks about the whistling. I've seen her out in the living room before at 3:03, When the sound starts, I could see her if I cracked my door open just an inch and peek. She's not out there often, at least I haven't caught her there much, but once or twice a month, I think she sits there on our big red couch just listening. One thing about hearing this story a few times and now reading it, I'm like, there's some things I'm like, I guess they're trying to paint a picture, but sometimes I'm just like, why do you even add that? Like, sometimes she sits out there in the big red couch, or they're mentioning things multiple times. Like, I think the big rule has been mentioned like 3 times, but maybe that's just to get you kind of scared of it.
Maybe. I think they're just trying to set the scene,
Yeah.
maybe, since you don't really know what the house looks like.
Yeah. The whistling has the same tune every night. It's cheerful. Okay, I'm going to input a whistling noise, guys. You're going to love it. What I think the whistler sounds like. Remember how I said there are 2 odd things about living here? Well, besides the night whistler, everyone in our neighborhood is really lucky. It's hard to explain, and Dad doesn't like us talking about it. Your dad don't like you talking about nothing, brother. Like, okay, you can't talk about the whistler, you can't talk about the good luck. Why can't you talk about the good luck? Maybe he doesn't want other people living there stealing all of his luck or something. But good things just seem to happen to people that live around here. Usually it's small things, winning a radio contest or getting unexpected promotion at work or finding some arrowheads buried in the backyard. You know, the authentic kind. No, I don't know, but okay. The weather is pretty good, and there's no crime, and everybody's garden blooms extra bright in the fall. Okay, no crime, but you have a random whistler that will probably kill you if you look at him, or people just disappear. That sounds like it has a lot of crime, actually.
No crime if you don't look at the whistler.
Yeah, if the whistler won't there won't be any crime as long as you don't look at him. Otherwise, you're getting killed. A million little blessings I've heard my mom say about living here, but the main reason we stay here and we moved here in the first place is my sister Nola. She was born very sick, something about her lungs. We couldn't even bring her home when she was first born, only visit her in the hospital. She was so small, I remember, even small compared to the other babies. A machine had to breathe for her. We moved into this house because it was closer to the hospital. And as soon as we moved, Nola started getting better. The doctors couldn't figure out why. They chalked it up to whatever they were doing, but they were still a little confused. But my parents knew, even I knew, Nola getting better was another one of the million little blessings we got for living in this neighborhood. So that's why we stayed, even after we found out for every little miracle that happens here every day, now and then some bad things happen, but they only happen for those who look at the whistler. See, our neighborhood has a welcoming committee. They show up with a macaroni casserole and a gift basket with a manila folder whenever someone new moves in. They're very friendly. 4 people showed up when we moved in 7 years ago. The committee made small talk, gave me a Snicker bar, and took turns holding Nola. It was her first week home from the hospital, so they were extra careful. Then the committee asked to speak to my parents in private, so I went to my room. I still managed to hear nearly every word. The welcoming committee told my parents about how nice the neighborhood was, really exceptionally. Hard to explain kind of nice. And they told my parents about the even harder to explain whistling that happened every morning at 3:03 a.m. and ended at the tick of 3:05. Man, he a fast walker. He doing that prancer size down the road.
Yeah.
The group, our new neighbors, warned our parents that the whistling was quiet and would never hurt or harm us, as long as we didn't look at what was making the sound. The part they stressed, and I pushed my ear into the door, straining to hear them. People who went looking for the whistler had their luck change, sometimes tragically. A black cloud hung over anyone that looked. Anything that could go wrong would. The manila envelope the committee brought over contained newspaper clippings, stories about car crashes and ruined lives, public deaths, and freak accidents. Not everyone dies, I heard the head of the committee tell my dad, but the life goes out of them. Even if they live, there is no light left in them, no presence. My mom, I could tell she was just she wasn't taking it seriously. She kept asking if this was a prank they play on new neighbors. At this point, my mom got angry, accused the committee of trying to scare us out of our new home, asked if they were racist on account of my dad being from the islands. My dad calmed her down and told her that he could tell the neighbors were sincere and they were just trying to help us. He explained that he grew up hearing these kinds of stories from his mom and that he knew that there were strange things that walked among us. Some of those strange things were good, some were bad, but most were just different. After the committee left, my dad went to the hardware store and bought canvas blinds with latches and locks and installed them on every window in the house after dinner. The first night in our new house, I crept out at 3 a.m., only to find my dad awake sitting in the living room holding my baby sister. My dad put his finger to his mouth with a shh motion and patted the couch for me to come sit next to him. At exactly 3:03, I heard the whistling. It came and it went, like the neighbors said. The whistling returns each night, and we never look, and we enjoy our million little blessings every day. Nola breathes on her own. She grows into a strong, clever girl. My dad even joined the welcoming committee. We don't get new neighbors often. Why would anyone want to leave? But when a new family moves in, my dad and the committee bring over the macaroni salad, a gift basket, and a manila folder. I can always tell by the look on my dad's face when he comes back if the family took the committee seriously or would be getting new neighbors soon. Not long ago, a family moved in directly next to us. The previous owner was Miss Mattie, passed away at 105. She lived a good long life. Our new neighbors seemed like they would fit in just fine. They believed the welcoming committee, took my dad's advice, and bought locking shutters because they had a young child of their own. Whatever newspaper clippings were in the manila envelope must have been very convincing since our neighbors got along with no issues for the first month. Okay, there's one contradicting thing I'm saying. He said that he doesn't know what's in the manila folder, or it must be really convincing, but he told us basically what was already in it. Like, things that happened. There were news clippings of, like, bad things that are happening. Like, but you just told us what was in it. Okay.
Maybe he saw from a distance.
Maybe.
Like random stuff that he assumed was that.
Maybe, yeah. One night, when our neighbors had to leave town, they left our son, Holden, to stay with us. He was 12, a year under me. I didn't know.
Damn you, Holden.
Dang you! I didn't know him very well, and that at night, as soon as his parents dropped him off after dinner, I could tell it was going to be a bad time. Man, he caught the vibes off this kid.
Yeah, he's probably a little punk.
Yeah. He's probably like had a little snooty face on.
It.
Do you
probably like those kids in the movies that are like little punks?
Yeah, they just look like
it. And then he's like, "Great, we're stuck with this kid."
He probably looks like that kid. What is his name? Off of Toy Story. Sid. Yeah, he probably looks like Sid. This is Holden talking. Do you know who is always? I'm gonna give him a funny voice. Do you know who is always out there whistling every night? Holden asked, the moments the adults left the room. The three of us were sitting in the den, some Disney movie playing idly on the television. My sister and I exchanged a glance. We don't talk about that, I said. I think it's the weirdo that lives in a big yellow house on the corner, Holden said. Mr. Tolles? My sister asked. No way, he's really nice. Holden shrugged. Must be a psycho killer then. Oh, this next thing he goes to. Oh, psycho killer, yeah, that's it. Nola tensed. We don't talk about it, I repeated. Let's go in my room and play Nintendo. We spent the next few hours playing games and eating popcorns, watching movies. Typical sleepover stuff. Holden was getting angsty. After my parents had wished us a good night, locked the blinds, and gone to bed, Holden stood up from his beanbag and walked over to where Nola and I were sitting. Have you ever even tried looking? He asked. It's nearly time. What a little stinker. Like most sleepovers, we conveniently ignored all the suggestion of bedtime. I was shocked to see that it was almost already 3 a.m. I sighed. We don't. See, I can't even try to look because my dad locks the blinds every night and hides the key, he continued as he ignored me. So does our dad, said Nola. No, replied Holden. No, he doesn't. I can already hear what he says that. He's a little stinker. You saw him do it, I said in a sharper tone. Holden grinned. Ew, that little stinky grin. Your dad locks the blinds. Yeah, but he doesn't hide the key. He keeps it right on his normal keychain. So, I asked, worried, already knowing what he would say next. So, after your dad locked up before your parents went to bed, I went to the bathroom. And on my way, I may have peeked into your little peeking Tom, peeked into your parents' room. And I might have seen your dad's keychain on the nightstand, and I maybe went to borrow the keys to the blind. Nola and I stared, and his grin just grew wider. You're lying, I said. Holden shrugged. You can go check if you want. Just open your parents' door and look. You'll see the keychain right there on the nightstand. Okay, at this part I don't really understand because he told him he stole it and he said you're lying, and then he's like, go look, you'll go see. Okay, like he didn't say, okay, I'm lying, go look. Like, why would you even do that? I'd just be like, give it to me. Give me the key, brother. Stay here, I told them both. Don't move a muscle. I hurried to my parents' room and hastily opened the door. If Holden was lying, my dad would be angry, beyond angry. I was scared to think about it, but more scared of the window being opened as the Whistler walked past. I took 2 steps in the dark. I froze. The whistling started, and I could hear it clearly from my parents' room. I never realized, but they must have heard the sound every night since we moved in the house. They never told us. I don't think I could have slept through it. I stood there listening to the whistler come closer, unsure whether I should turn on the light and call for my dad or not. Soft sounds from the living room brought me back to reality. Nola, I yelled, running out of my parents' room. Holden and Nola were standing near the front door next to the window. Holden wasn't lying. I could see him fumbling with the lock. He's like trying to reach up there and get it. I heard a click. He did have the key. Holden let out a quick laugh. Nola stood next to him, arched up, afraid but maybe curious. The whistling was right outside our house. I think I made a sound. Called out. I don't remember. Time froze. Clock hands nailed to the face. But I found myself moving. I'm not fast. I've never been athletic, but somehow I covered the space between myself and Nola in a moment. My eyes were locked on her. I heard a snap in it start to rise. I heard the whistling just on the other side of the window. But I had my arms around Nola and I turned us facing away from the window. At the same time, I jammed my eyes shut. The blinds whipped up. The whistling stopped. Don't look, okay? I told her. Don't turn around. I reached out with my arm, not holding Nola, and tried to touch Holden. My hand brushed against his arm. He was shaking worse than Nola. Holden? I asked. Silence. I reached past him and gingerly felt for the window. Eyes still sealed shut. The glass was cold against my fingertips, colder than it should have been this time of year. I moved my hand up to the window, searching for the string to pull down the blinds. The glass began to get warmer the further I reached, and there was a gentle hum feeding back into my fingertips. Like, what I'm figuring is like whatever it is right up against the glass, breathing on the glass.
Which is terrifying.
Yeah. I tried not to think about it. I touched the string and yanked down the blinds. I opened my eyes to the dim light leaking from the kitchen. I could make out Holden's pale and small, staring at the now closed window. Holden? I asked again. He turned towards me and screamed. I can imagine. Everything became a flurry of emotions. Lights sparked in the life in the hallway and the living room. My parents' footsteps thudded across the hardwood floor. I didn't turn to look around at them. My eyes were glued on Holden. He was pale, and he bit his lips so hard that a thin red line of blood running down his chin, and he wet himself. Yucky! What happened? My dad asked. He looked. I'd never seen my dad so scared before. In a moment, an old, ugly terror stitched on his face, apparent fear. Just Holden? He mouthed to me. I nodded yes. He looked so relieved, I nearly expected him to cheer. But then he turned to Holden. I wonder if he felt bad for feeling so good that only Holden looked. There was a knock at the door. We froze. Holden whimpered. Don't answer it. My mom stood at the threshold of the hall. I'd always thought she was a skeptic, just humoring my dad. But that night, we were all believers. I noticed that both of my parents had baseball bats they must have taken from their bedroom. The knock came again, a little louder this time. Please don't open the door. Please don't open the door, Holden whispered. My dad walked over to him, hugged him close. We won't. My dad promised.
Too bad for you, Holden.
My dad promised, still holding his bat. Nothing is coming in here tonight. This time the knocking was loud enough to rattle the door.
After you leave.
Holden screamed again, and Nola clutched her arms around my neck, and my mom came over and knelt next to us and wrapped around me and my sister. Thud, thud, thud. Call the police, my mom whispered to my dad. The knocking instantly stopped. My dad looked over. Do you think? He was cut off by a frantic knocking that trailed off to a polite tap, tap, tap. Police. Something said from the other side of the door. The voice from the outside sounded exactly like my mom, like a parrot repeating the words back to her. Police. Call. The police. Tap, tap, tap. Police. My mom pulled us closer. Clash, clash, clash. Please stop, I heard her whisper. I don't think calling them will help, my dad said. How will we know if they're at the door or if this thing is? The knocking came back harder than before. The door shook. Then it stopped. After a long moment, I heard the knocking again, but it was coming from the back door. We just turned to look towards the back door, and the knocking immediately returned to the front door. Front to back to front, loud, quiet, and then loud again. Suddenly the sound was coming from both doors at once, big, heavy blows, like a sledgehammer. Then something started rapping against all the windows in the house and the walls. It was like we were living inside a drum with a dozen people trying to play it at once, or we were like a turtle and something was attempting to claw us out of our shell. Something about that is like, it's either able to make them think that they're hearing this, but I feel like if there was something that was hitting at your door or your house or just your door in general as loud and as hard as a sledgehammer or shaking everything, it could eventually break your door in some type of way. So I wonder if that's like something it's making them think that they're hearing. You would think there would be damage on the house or the door.
Yeah.
Stop! Holden yelled. The knocking died. I won't tell.
You don't get to say nothing.
I won't tell, Holden said, staring at the door. I promise. I won't tell anyone what I saw. Just please go away. I wonder if the thing will kill them or take them away if they don't promise to tell, because nobody that's had this thing, they've had things like the people that did live, they just had bad luck or whatever, but they never told anybody what they saw. You know what I'm saying? Apparently, because nobody knows what it is still. Please go away. We waited nearly a minute, and then we heard it. A soft tap, tap, tap coming from the window Holden had looked through earlier. Holden started to cry, sobbing like a prisoner watching the gallows being built outside their cell. My dad held him, brushed his hair, but never lied to him. Never told him things would be okay.
Like, sucks to be you.
Better than you than me. That's what I'd be saying.
Mm-hmm.
The tapping on the window went for the rest of the night. We huddled together in the living room. None of us slept that night. The tapping stopped around 7 a.m., and that's about the same time the sun came up. We waited another 2 hours, and then my dad opened the blinds. He made us all go back to my parents' bedroom first. I heard him open the door, then come back in, and he told us, it's done. It's done? I'd be like, it's gone, okay? Holden's parents came back around lunchtime. My mom and dad walked Holden over to their house. They all went inside for quite some time. Nola and I watched through the window. She stuck to me that whole day, sometimes holding my hand. When my parents came back, they looked grim, but wouldn't tell us what they said to Holden's family. It was a Sunday, so we all...
Like he's a goner.
Sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. It was a Sunday, so we all spent the day together, ordered pizza, and watched a movie. That night, everyone...
Pretend that Holden next door wasn't a goner.
Yeah, I just feel like everybody's looking at each other being like, so, the weather's nice today.
What's your day?
That night, we all slept in the same room. We didn't see much of Holden or his parents for the rest of the week, but that Thursday there was a moving truck in their driveway. Nola and I watched them pack up the whole afternoon after school. What sticks with me the most is how tired Holden and his parents looked. All three of them had the same pallor, grim mouths, and lifeless eyes. Even from across the street, I could tell something was wrong. Holden and his family were gone before sunset. I remember that the original welcoming committee said to my parents when we moved in, not everyone who looks at the Whistler dies, but even those who live have the light go out from them for the rest of their lives. And their life is full of misfortune, a million little tragedies. I think Holden's parents looked, either that to comfort him, or they didn't believe him, or to share the burden. I watched Nola some days, happy and young and alive, and then I wonder if I'd been slower, if she would have looked, would I have looked too, to comfort her, to share the burden? I'm glad I don't have to find out. We still live in that house in that neighborhood. We still hear the Whistler walk past every night. The blessings, the luck, the good things that happen here are too good to leave. But we're careful. We don't let friends over to spend the night anymore, and my dad hides the key for the blinds. Not that I've gone looking. Some things you just don't need to look for. So what are your thoughts on that?
I have so many. I want to know that if... No, I have a question for you
Okay.
first. Okay, so he's like, what I would have looked to comfort her, like he's saying the parents might have looked.
Yeah.
If that was one of your siblings, they ended up looking, would you look?
Probably, yeah.
Make them feel better.
Yeah.
I feel like I would
I'd also
too,
be
if
very
it was any of
curious
you
because I'd be
guys.
like, so what? It's not even that
Like,
scary.
well-
That's what I'd be like. It's not even that scary. You're such a baby. I'm going to look at it.
It's fine, guys.
But you know what
Yeah,
I was
because
thinking?
I feel like I would too.
You know what I was thinking? I wonder if the people that don't promise they're not tell are the ones that die or like die in car accidents or terrible tragedies, because the people that do live on like why don't talk about this anymore? You know what I'm saying? I'd feel it would have got
and
out.
What if?
I wonder if they tell anybody
Yeah,
they die.
and you were saying. So you're saying you think if they don't tell, they live and they just have
Yeah.
like an unlucky life,
because like
stepping in dog poop
Yeah.
and stuff,
and have cave crickets
getting
live in the
water
house.
on their pants and it looks like they peed themselves. Stuff
just like
that.
Holden did.
Little tragedies.
Yeah, I think I really think that's a thing, because when he said, "I promise I won't," like it was getting worse and worse. Like what that thing wanted Holland outside with it. Like it got worse and worse until Holland said, "Okay, I won't tell anybody," and then it stopped, and it just was a tap 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 the rest of the night. If they're able to live, if they just promise not to tell, or they don't go tell anybody. I wonder if they tell people or say something, then they die basically. I really wonder. And the way it mimics people.
I wonder if there's more whistlers than just this one.
Yeah, I wonder if... but
they take shifts. Is there more than one?
Yeah. Wait, that was a case.
Does it look like whatever they're scared of, kind of like Pennywise? He turns into the fear of whatever you're scared of, he looks like.
Yeah. You know what, though? Also, creepypastas or stories like this, they're meant to try to trick you to think that they might be real. Like this old urban legends we were told as kids, that none of them were actually real, but people told them so much that they were like, oh, so-and-so told me. So people always think, oh, this actually did happen somewhere down the line. And some stories did happen, but they got so contorted by the end, it got down to telephone. You know, you're playing telephone, got down to the end of the line, that it's a completely different story. But you know, it's funny, if who were meant to take this as someone actually telling their story. I guess anybody could talk about the Whistler, because if he was telling his story, this kid is apparently writing this story about this experience, then he's talking about the Whistler. I wonder if that affects anything.
He doesn't know what he looks like,
Yeah,
though.
he just didn't look at him. So I'm guessing...
He doesn't disclose where they live and stuff, so there's no way for people to know.
Yeah. I bet it's some type of monster that lives around that area. Some type of...
It's like, like an entity demon thing.
Mm-hmm.
If the light goes out of their eyes, it's probably like
it takes almost
their
soul or something. Or their will to live.
It's weird. After our family got together after Thanksgiving, I had like nightmares for like 3 days straight.
I tend to have stuff like that happen too, and I think it's just things coming up from the past or just being around people that
I
have that
think
same
so
thing. Because I
too.
have that happen to me
It's like
too.
that's weird, and I'm like, well, living in mom and dad's house, I felt like we had nightmares
Yeah,
all the
I was
time.
always when I was a
Didn't
kid.
know what it was like to have a restful sleep until I didn't live
Yeah,
there anymore.
when I was a kid, I woke up at a like the same time every single night from some kind of nightmare, and I would always just look out my door to see if dad was awake, and if dad was awake, I felt fine. But the rare occasion of dad not being awake at like
Yeah, and it's
3 a.m.,
like pitch
I'd
black
be
in our house.
terrified.
Yeah.
I could not go back to sleep.
Yeah.
Sometimes I would just sit in my
Some
bed
of the
waiting.
dreams were so vivid and they felt so real. And it
Yeah,
was just like I couldn't go back to sleep.
yeah, very much so. I still have some of those today.
I do too.
Especially if it's closer to the morning time, like if it's in like if it's like 12 o'clock at
Like,
night or 2 or something like that. I don't like if I wake up from a dream, I'm like, oh, that was just a dream. But if it's closer to the morning time, like 3, 4, 5, I feel like they're always more vivid to me, and it's more
yeah,
spooky.
I agree. Definitely. It's like there's just something eerie about 3 o'clock in the
Mm-hmm.
morning. Till next time, lock your doors and check your windows.
Because you never know if the whistler's right outside.